Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Patti Brennan Show. Whether you have $20 or $20 million, this show is for those of you who want to protect, grow, and use your assets to live your very best lives. Joining me today, once again, is Dr. Joseph Coughlin, the director of the MIT AgeLab. Before we go into the actual podcast, I want to tell you a story about Dr. Joe. He is the author of the book, The Longevity Economy. This book is a must-read for government leaders all over the world who want to take advantage of where the puck is going. I mean, let's face it, we're all living longer lives. And this concept of longevity, or at least as a member of his advisory board, he has encouraged me to think differently about the aging process and this thing called retirement. So I want to tell you a story of something that happened about 2 months ago. So I was contacted by Forbes to be one of the keynote speakers of their conference. And I got to tell you guys, this is kind of a big deal. There were literally 1,000 people in the audience live, and there were another 2,000 people or so virtually. And basically, it is the who's who of the industry, people you see on TV, on Wall Street, etc. And as I thought about what I wanted to share that day, I contacted Joe and I asked his permission if I could share some of the data that he shared with us on the advisory board. Now, Dr. Joe being Dr. Joe, he said, of course, please have at it. Share this information. It's important information for everybody in your community, as well as people outside. So during the conversation, I kind of shared with him, I said, Joe, I'm kind of nervous about this. Like I really don't want to mess this up. And I will tell you all, he was amazing. From that moment on, he was texting me, sharing additional data, information that I might want to use. Literally up to 5 minutes before I walked on that stage, he was wishing me good luck, telling me I was going to hit it out of the ballpark. He was just, he has become such a good friend of mine. Now, those of you who are watching right now, you may see me live. You may not be able to see Dr. Joe. If you did, you would see that he typically wears a jacket and a bow tie, maybe some khakis, and really colorful sneakers. Always sneakers. So, Joe, in your honor, I want you to know I got my sneaks on.
There you go, Patti. You're such a sweetheart, and you're very kind with your words. But just so I don't let you down, I do have red, white, and blue Vans on with red socks, electric blue pants, and a pink and blue bow tie. So,
get out of town! Oh my goodness, Joe! After the show, you have to text me a picture of yourself. You got to do a selfie. This is awesome.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Good.
And that's what I love about you because, we all kind of get in our mindsets and we think what we've thought before. And what you have helped me to do is to think outside the box, to really look at everything that we do from a different perspective. And it's helped me so much in what we do on a day-to-day basis. I will tell you that our goal is to help our clients live a rich and prosperous life. And what you've helped me to think about is to include quality of life as well. So before I go any further, first of all, thank you so much for joining us once again, Joe.
No, you're always a joy to work with. Patti, you can always look outside the box. As an academic, I get paid to watch, but it's only through working with people like you that are willing to say, okay, let me see if that idea works or it makes sense to put it into practice. Real innovative thinking is not about thinking what's different, but putting what's different into practice. And so it's a delight to work with you.
Well, thank you. And Joe, you and I have not had this conversation yet, and I want you to know that we have actually been doing that. So I'm going to report to you today in front of everybody that's watching what I have learned in this process. So let's kind of tee it up and talk about what's kind of on our agenda. I want to talk about this concept of Social Security. When we think about Social Security, we think about that monthly income we all get when we retire. But what you've helped me to think about is to really reframe that and think about Social Security in a different way. To think about it in terms of, the the security we get when we're with people we feel connected to. Not the Facebook kind of friends, but the people that we really enjoy being around, that we have fun with, and who help us get through difficult times. Frankly, kind of like what you did for me in preparation for that conference.
We forget the fact that our friends, that true social security, is the very glue that holds what we do every day to give it meaning and purpose. And yes, absolutely, family is a definite part of that. But I hate to do the math with everyone, but you generally do spend a far more amount of time, that is waking time, that is, with your friends in various areas. And I think that we also forget that there are different types of friends that we have out there. And we can certainly talk about what that portfolio, if you will, of friends ought to look like, or what it may be.
And what you've helped me to understand is that, this is, you might think, well, what's a financial planner doing talking about something like this? But yet, maybe it's my nursing background, but I got to tell you that this whole concept has significant implications for a person's cognitive health, their physical health, and all of that is going to translate into financial implications. So it is really important.
So, look, a book a number of years ago, at the risk of going academic on everyone, but a very good book written a number of years ago, 1999, by the sociologist Robert Putnam, was called Bowling Alone. And as the title leads you to believe, is that we still like bowling in the United States, believe it or not. And in the 50s and 60s and even part of the 70s, we used to join bowling leagues. But what Putnam's research found is that we don't like to join leagues anymore. We do like to bowl, but we bowl alone. And what we're finding is that those places where we made friends and made connections and relied upon support, whether it's the VFW or the church or the temple or the mosque or Rotary Club, all of those social institutions that provided us friends and purpose and meaning have been declining dramatically. I'll give one example. It's quite startling. The Methodist Church effectively loses one church per week. So thinking about all those things that our parents, and frankly, many of us relied on to give us social purpose, meaning, and engagement. In fact, one last stat that I'll give you that I think is a little scary, if you will, is that in 1990, only 3% of the population could say, I have no friends. By 2021, more than 12% replied in a survey saying, I have no friends whatsoever.
Wow. That's so sad, and yet we see it every single day. I think it's interesting because, to your point, this was happening even before the pandemic, and it's just accelerated that whole process.
Absolutely. The idea of being social isolation, in fact, we had a epidemic of anxiety and nervousness and social isolation to begin with, and anxiety is up 41% according to the American Psychological Association. And that social isolation, as you alluded to, it's not just about being lonely and no one to play a game with or bowl or something like that. It has real physical and mental implications. And so longevity planning is a part of retirement planning, because even if you have money and financial security, that doesn't necessarily mean you have a life.
And I love the way that you put it, Joe, to all of us. It's, for many of us, our closest friends were just by chance. It was those chance collisions. We were standing on the sidelines together watching our kids play soccer, or, we might have worked together. And, I will tell you that many of my the people that I work with are my friends, and what happens when that's no longer a part of your life? How do you recreate that as we retire and age, et cetera?
I don't want to get everyone down, as my mother used to say, down in the mouth on this, but if you think about it, many of us identify with our professions as part of our very identity. And on a Friday, if you retire at 5 o'clock as a professor, on Monday morning when you wake up, not only are the students not there, not only are your colleagues not there, but what is your identity? And sadly, to tell you how isolation and profound change like that impacts you, Harvard Med School did a study a number of years ago that showed, particularly men, that the first 6 months that they are most likely to have a fatal heart attack is their first 6 months of retirement.
Wow.
It is that entire crunch of who am I? What am I doing? Where am I connecting? Where do I fit in, so to speak?
And I thought it was so interesting to hear that, when men were asked in studies what they were going to do in retirement, most of the men answered that they were going to spend more time with their wives. And yet women did not answer the same way. Which
it's kind of scary.
Yeah. And understandably, and I don't know, is it a gender thing or what have you? But I think that maybe what we need to do is focus, and what you've helped me to think about is how can we help people create more of those chance collisions proactively, on purpose.
Absolutely. And by the way, you're right. I don't want to just skip over the gender thing. There is a gender thing going on, is that men and women working as well will put so much time and effort into their identity, their work, their work life is their social life quite often and whatnot. And so men across the generations will report they want to spend more time with their significant other or their wife, whatever it might be. But here's the gender difference. Women do a far better job in general aging. They find new things to do. They make new friends, girlfriends, book clubs. They work longer or work part-time and the like. But the reason why women need to even amp it up beyond their male colleagues, women are much more likely. In fact, 40% of women over 75 live solo. That is, they live alone. So while women have a head start on that social connection and the like, it's a good thing because they need to make it even more pronounced in older age.
It's so interesting because, Joe, what I've been doing since you and I talked about this is in every meeting I'm bringing up the topic. And I'm not, I will tell you, I'm not asking our clients, are you feeling lonely? Do you feel isolated? I don't want to go down that path or make them feel kind of awkward. But I'm just kind of curious, what was it like for them during COVID? How did they fill their time? Was it hard for them? And I'm also kind of taking a little bit of a kind of informal survey in terms of, what were the things that made the difference for them? I will tell you, it's been fascinating. I've been getting the typical answers like, I read a lot, or, I did FaceTime with my friends and my family. My own son, Joe, said that the way that he handled it was he and his girlfriend were on FaceTime and they just never took each other off. So they were just on FaceTime all day long, and they were just kind of hanging out together on the phone. The one thing that I thought was fascinating, one woman said, Patti, I will tell you that I made it a point. It was my goal every day that I had to see people. I had to interact with 5 people per day. I couldn't end the day unless I had actually connected with another human being face to face every single day. And she said, once I kind of established that structure, it was kind of a game. And it could have been at Wawa or the food store, or, on a walk around the neighborhood. But that's how I survived.
And frankly, she's ahead of the game because data from just this past year said that only a third, and that's being generous, 31% to be exact, said they made a new friend over the last 5 years. Mm. So we can't blame it entirely on the pandemic, because that means 3 years before that they were, shall we say, coming up empty. So, Patti, if you have a second, maybe we could lay out what a portfolio of friendship or social security might want to look like. There are different friends. There's a utility friend, if you will, and those are the folks we work with, and the bartender, the security guy that gives you a smile every morning. You share a few words about weather and whatnot. That's not, shall we say, the most intimate, but these are the people that make your day in terms of sharing a glance, acknowledging that we're there, and maybe even a joke or two. Then I want people to imagine that they have a set of folders in front of them. So who do they have in that utility folder? The second one is pleasure friends. These are the friends that actually are just, they're for fun. They go out. You go for travel. They're the folks that make you smile, that tell you jokes. You go out for a drink with, whatever it might be. How many of them do you have? Do you have enough in reserve? Because as one woman told me in her late 80s, we were interviewing in Chicago, she said, son, which I appreciated, given at my age, being called son is a great compliment. But the idea is, son, at my age, there's a natural attrition to friendship. And then there's the third category that is called good friends, and at the risk of being very academic and geeky, Aristotle called these friends of virtue. But what I want to talk about is these are the friends that they're there when you need them. They make you a better person. They are the intimate friends that share your hopes, your fears, your dreams, and the like. They're the ones that really make things possible in addition to your family. And in fact, when the chips are down with your family, these are the families by choice, not necessarily by default. But Patti, lastly, that fourth folder might be the most important, and you alluded to it perfectly, which is those friends are, shall we say, those under development. Have you put yourself in the position for those chance collisions to make new friends, going out to what do we call in sociology third places, the VFW, the library, cafes to meet new people? Are you working or volunteering or going to faith-based organizations more often so that you have those chance collisions? And frankly, there's no such thing as poaching friends. Friends of friends are new friends. And so those are wells that we should all consider going to make sure that our portfolio is robust, resilient, and frankly, refreshed as often as possible. Because as that woman said in Chicago, there is a natural attrition to friendship as we age.
You know, Joe, I love the way that you framed that because it just makes it easier because it's so easy to be complacent and just kind of, I'll just watch TV or what have you. But by using that folder approach and acknowledging this, it's kind of like, you know, I think we've talked about this before. I'm not a fan of budgets. I don't like the word. It sounds like a diet. It sounds like I've got to give something up that I really enjoy eating. But at the same point, there's a lot to be said for awareness. Where does the cash go to? Where is the spending? And in this context, what you're bringing up is you know, the awareness of, hey, you know, this is really how you live a rich life. It's not so much about the money, although yes, there's a certain amount that's necessary, but what really makes a life truly worth living, a rich life, are those four folders that you've referred to. And it's kind of fun. It's a little bit, again, kind of like me getting on the stage in front of 1,000 people who are much smarter than I. It's kind of, you got to get out of your comfort zone, make an effort, maybe do things that you kind of make you feel uncomfortable. But in the long run, it's also kind of fun to meet new people. You know, I often learn a lot about my clients when I ask them questions about things like how they like to travel. Do they prefer to travel alone or do they like group tours? I have clients who now have friends all over the country because they met on a trip and had a blast together, and now they go and see each other, you know, during the year. They've developed this new friendship that was one of those chance collisions. And it was because they went on a group tour instead of by themselves. So it's just kind of interesting how this can evolve just very naturally through awareness, which is what you and I are trying to do today.
And at the risk of scaring people, but the fact of the matter is that we know that this is not just about being nice and being social and, you know, hearing echoes of our mothers from decades ago saying, hey, you should go out and play with the other kids. Patti, as you know from your medical background as well, this has profound medical, physical implications. So a meta-study was done by the Journal of the American Medical Association and others that showed that, do you know that being socially isolated and feeling lonely has the medical equivalent, physical equivalent, as smoking 11 to 15 cigarettes per day.
Wow.
And a good colleague of mine named Rich Maritoli at the Yale Medical School, he and I years ago had done research on driving and health. And the reason why we talked about driving so much was, if you think about it, before you do anything and before you meet anyone, you got to get there first. And we found that social isolation, or inability to get out there and meet people and whatnot, that was more often than not in the United States facilitated by driving, not only led to greater heart attacks and stroke, but also bad eating habits, not taking your meds, cardiovascular disease, depression, and the like. So this is not just about getting out there to be with nice people. Heck, I blow the Myers-Briggs scale off in terms of being an introvert. But you know something? Even introverts need people too.
So interesting. Joe, as always, this is so enlightening. So let's do this. How about we're going to end this here, and then what do you say you and I get back together and talk about some of the things that you are now working on at MIT to solve this problem, to make it easier? I'm just so excited. You know, folks, some of the stuff that we kind of take for granted today came about as a result of the things that MIT and others identified as a problem. I mean, let's think about it. I don't know about you guys, but when I was younger, when I was just driving, when I drove into the driveway, we had to lift our garage door. That was a problem, especially for older people. Those doors were heavy. Now, as a result of needing to solve that problem, we all have these garage door clickers, and the door automatically goes up. So something that was originally invented, if you will, to solve an issue that was targeted towards a particular population is now mainstreamed. And I'm so excited to learn about what you and others are doing at the MIT AgeLab to think about this issue, because it is an issue. It's going to become worse before it gets better unless we do something about it. And I'm so proud and honored to know you, Joe, and to know some of the things that you're working on, and excited. So I'd love to know, and let's reconvene. And folks, if you're watching, tune in, because we're going to be talking about what's the next backup camera, all right, that we can look forward to. So, Joe, thank you.
Great, Patti. Always good to be with you.
I love you. I am so grateful. My feet feel so good in these sneakers. Thank you so much. and thanks to all of you for joining us today. So if you have any questions, definitely feel free. Get on our website. Ask whatever questions. Let us know what you think about these podcasts and what you'd like to learn about. And most importantly, feel free to share this with other people. These podcasts, and Joe, I got to tell you, your podcasts are viral. Do you know your podcasts, the ones that we did before, are the most popular podcasts that we've done since beginning? So,
well, you put another cheesesteak on the table, I'll be right back down to Philly again.
Oh, boy. Okay. You don't have to say that twice. So thank you all for joining us today, and thank you so much for, being there and giving us your feedback. And I hope you all have just a fantastic day.